All right, Brick Bro. What are we talking about today, man? I know you said we had some conversation about thoughts and some different things that people are going through. What's on the agenda for today?
Yeah, it sort of led me to I've been having some conversations over the last, I would say maybe 2 weeks or so, and it's a common theme about you know, people dealing with anxiety, me talking about my personal anxieties on certain things and talking about man depression. A lot of people are dealing with and talking about depression and those type of things. And so really when I start talking more about it and digging more into it, the conversation always stems around thoughts, man. And at the end of the day, everything begins with a thought, and so that what sometimes takes us down those paths. So my topic today is really everything begins with a thought. There's sort of a formula, and it really starts where the thought is the seed, right? You have a thought, and the thought leads to an action. The actions lead to habits, and then the habits ultimately define your character, right? So character going all the way back to the beginning to the root deals with a thought or deals with your thought life, right? So it's definitely something. My disclaimer for all this is always I'm not speaking from I got it all together and I made it and I do all this stuff great. It's just things that I'm thinking about and I'm working towards and I like to talk to other people about so we can walk through this together. So really just, everything kind of begins with a thought, and so for me, the basis for me being a believer is I always like to refer to the word and what does the word say about what I'm talking about. Definitely not being a Bible teacher and all that, but I mean that's my element. So whatever it is for you, it is. But for me, I go back just to the word as a guide. So 2 Corinthians 10:5, it talks about gaining control over your thoughts and basically aligning your thoughts with the truth, and that's important for us to understand because thoughts will take you down a dark pathway. It'll take you where it wants you to go, and we have to understand how to be more in control of our thoughts and how to do that and what it means. So 2 Corinthians 10:5 basically says casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. And so basically, it takes me back to a thought of when Sharon was in the military, and whenever you're coming on and off the military base, and that word captivity, that's a military term, right? That's a military word, or it leads you, has you thinking about military and war and those type of things. So whenever we're pulling up to the base, whether I'm going to the gym, I'm going to the PX, or going somewhere, when you're going to the base, before you enter these premises, there's a soldier at the gate, and the soldier is checking credentials. The soldier is making sure that you have the permission and you have the right to enter into this place, right? It's not taken lightly. They don't just have anybody there. It's a soldier there, right? And so that's what I think about when I'm thinking about thoughts and when the word says, bring every thought into captivity, because basically when a thought enters the forefront of your brain, it should be met with some authority or some checkpoint that says, what type of thought are you? What do you want here? Where are you going? What are you about? Right. So again, 2 Corinthians 10:5, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. So when you let your thoughts just run free, right? Like you and I were laughing at one of the previous podcasts. Like you can't have Day Day them, top flight security from one of these old movies. Like you can't have just any kind of security at your gate, right? Somebody who's not paying attention, just letting like those apartment complexes that the gate is always open and visitors just come and go. There's no checkpoints, there's no authorization, and that's usually how our mind is. If I'm being honest, and if I speak for myself, if you're not paying attention, if you're not really bringing every thought into captivity, all type of thoughts are free flowing back and forth in your mind, and there's really no order to what's being allowed to take up residence in your mind. And sometimes several things can take up residence and build a stronghold in your mind. So we'll talk about that a little more. But when you just let the thoughts roam free, there's no military checkpoint at the forefront of your mind. What things happen? Well, number one, you can definitely have anxiety because these thoughts are you're entertaining these thoughts, and they're making you believe certain things are going to happen or can happen, or situations are looming, or whatever the case may be, and you find yourself worried, you find yourself building in anxiety. It's just all these type of things happen. So when you let your thoughts roam free, anxiety is sure to be a byproduct of it. Mental and emotional exhaustion, I have felt that before, where your mind and your emotions are working so much unnecessarily that they're literally exhausted. It's just to the point to where um, you're having a physiological response to things that haven't even really happened. So that's a byproduct. And then also depression. And way more people are experiencing depression than should be. I, so many people I've talked to, whether they know it or not, whether we're specifically talking about depression or what they're telling me, lets me understand and lets me know that's what they're dealing with. And I understand what it is because I've dealt with it and I've experienced it myself. And again, a lot of it is letting thoughts continue to flow deeply, and it's things that has never even happened. I'll give you a quick example. It's when I was younger. Man, I was so afraid of getting shots. I was so afraid of needles. And if I knew on a Friday, if I knew on a Monday that I was going to have to get a shot on a Friday, man, I worried from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the way to Friday. And I worried myself almost sick. And then on Friday, we get to that big moment, about 15 seconds of a little small pinch or something that I thought was going to be way more than what it was. And then it's over. And instead of it just being the 15 seconds to pinch and it's done, it was a whole week of worry, of weight, of unnecessary anxiety, because I allow my thoughts to create what it's going to look like when I go to the doctor's office, how big the needle is going to be, how bad is it going to hurt, how many times is it going, and I'm creating things in my mind with my thoughts that literally haven't happened and probably are not going to happen. So again, that's just a way we can example of how we can let our thoughts kind of run free. So how do you take control of your thoughts? And again, I've used a couple of military type terms, and one of the things is understanding it's mental warfare. It's spiritual and it's a mental warfare. So the military like action is, where you don't let the toxic, fearful thoughts run wild in your mind. You have to literally guard your mind, and it's active, and it's of a military grade and not of a passive grade. So and one of the first steps in taking control of your thoughts is making sure that you guard your mind, and try to literally bring every thought into captivity. Um, the other thing is understanding strongholds. So again, another military term where something has, you've got high ground, you've got position. You basically have a place where things have formulated, and if it's a negative stronghold, basically you got pride or false arguments or negative self-talk, those type of things, and these things have set up a position to block your peace. And so if you got a stronghold of negativity, you got a stronghold of poor thought life, you have a stronghold of just different things that could lead to other things like addictions and all that type of stuff. That's why that word says you got to pull down those strongholds. So you got to destroy the negative fortress, the negative high ground that's been built over a bunch of negative thoughts. You have to start replacing that with the right type of thoughts, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, because there's another scripture that gives you specific thoughts that you want to think about, and replace those type of thoughts with the negative thoughts. Um, Deeply ingrained lies and thoughts are patterns. And so some of it, I was having a conversation recently with someone you and I both know and love. And we were talking about this a little bit, and the question came up, which was a great one because I hadn't heard it before. The difference between thoughts and memories, right? So memories are things that have actually happened, that they're factual, or they at least are evident because you've had them, they've happened before, and how do you deal with it if it was a negative memory or something? So that's different than a thought. Thought is something that's active. Thought is something that may not have happened already. It's something that you're dealing with right now. Thoughts can be byproducts of the type of memories that you have. So, for example, one of our previous talks, when I was talking about having a impaired vision and how things that were told to me or things ways that I was made to feel younger changed how my thoughts were happening, and I wasn't able to manifest a certain type of thoughts, so I wasn't able to do certain type of thoughts. So there was a stronghold in my mind based on some of the memories, right? So we're not talking about memories here. We're talking about thoughts. Memories are a different pathway, and we have to deal with memories and deal with other things differently. But thoughts can be born out of old bad memories that you may have. Um, so a couple things. Another thing is, I always like to say, so let me say it this way: we live in a world that's all about feelings, right? Everybody expresses their feelings. Certain ways that people feel, they would want you to acknowledge their feelings as something that's factual. But feelings are feelings, and feelings are not facts. So one of the things I've learned to say, and I didn't create it, I heard it in either a men's group or somewhere, is make your feelings fit the facts, right? So make your feelings fit the facts, because there's a difference between feelings and facts, right? The way I feel is subjective. The way I feel is up and is down, it's left and it's right. The way I feel is not a solid value system or a stable foundation, because my feelings are variable. Facts are facts. Facts are solid. They're objective, and they're tangible. So for me, again, I'm referring to the word. So part of my fact base or my value system is going to be the word. So you can, I heard someone say this, you can feel like you're not married. I think one of our pastors said that you can feel like you're not married, but but the fact is you're married. So you need to act on the fact. You need to make your feelings fit the facts, right? You might feel like you're tall, but if you're short, if you measured by standard, you're short, right? So again, I don't mean to make lighthearted of that, but we live in a world that talks about feelings a lot, and we are trying to build things around feelings, and we're trying to make laws and facts and foundations around feelings, and you got to make your feelings fit the facts. So the question is, what are some practical thoughts, right, about how do I do this? How do I recognize thoughts? How do I take these thoughts captive? What's the idea, and how do we do it? And so I was looking at something, and it basically outlined it in I think four steps to look at. I'm real simple, try to keep everything smooth and easy. So 4 steps: awareness, arrest, analyze, and align. So practical steps to take the thoughts captive: awareness, arrest, analyze, and align. You got to notice when your mind shifts toward anxiety, pride, or toxic type of thoughts. And if you catch it at the forefront of your mind, meaning when the car pulls up and the soldier says, "Who are you? Do you have ID? Should you be here?" Right? That should be a process that we have in our mind based on what the thought is. Pull it up. Awareness. Okay, when it identifies itself. I'm a thought about having a great day tomorrow, or I'm a thought about being a better parent, or I'm a thought about how will I earn extra income in the future, or whatever the case may be. Okay, it can pass the checkpoint. The second step is arrest. You halt that thought immediately, and you treat it like an unwanted intruder. So, I said this on the other time we spoke. The thought is booty. No, you're not authorized to come through here. The thought is, I think I'm going to die. The thought is, I'm definitely I'm definitely not a good parent. Whatever that thought is, that's not based in fact and it's not positive, you arrest it and you don't allow it any further access. The mistake that we make is we allow those type of thoughts in, and those thoughts build and they grow and they compound and they bring other thoughts with them. And then before you know it, you have a head full of thoughts that aren't based on objectivity. They aren't based on truth, and they aren't built to build you up. They're built to sort of tear you down. So make sure you arrest the thought, quote unquote, bring it into captivity. Analyze it. Compare what you're thinking to the word, to your foundation, your truth, whatever it is, your truth. I'm referring to my truth. My truth is based on, my value system is based on the word. Whatever your value system is based on, I can't tell you what value system to have, but you got to have some stable ground that you build on, that when everything is in disarray, when everything is going haywire, what do you set yourself upon? What do you land on, that solid foundation, that stabilizing, that allows you to get your bearings, and that allows you to get back on the straight and narrow? So you have to find whatever that is for you. For me, it's the word. So does these thoughts align with what the word has said about me? If they don't gain access, right? So awareness, arrest, analyze, and then finally align. Speak God's truth over you. So if those thoughts are negative, if those thoughts are against what the value system has said about you, then you have the power and the authority to be able to correct that and allow in other thoughts to move forward. And again, we'll talk about, well, what do the other thoughts look like, right? So again, quick review of how to take the thoughts to captivity. Be aware, arrest the thought or bring it into captivity, analyze it, and then align it or replace it with what's true and what's right, or what the word has said about you. So last thing I'll go into is really, so what type of thoughts are allowed? So you can find that in Philippians 4:8. And it basically says, Philippians 4:8 basically says, think on these things. The Apostle Paul is speaking, and he says, speak on these things. And this is instructions for believers to fill our mind with these type of thoughts. And it's basically six types of thoughts. I'll say six. So, and those are what's true, what's noble, what's just, what's pure, what's lovely, and what's admirable. So, what are true thoughts? Those are thoughts that are rooted in God's reality about you, what he tells you about you in his word. Rejecting deception and aligning yourself with what's true. What is noble? Something that's worthy of respect. So are the thoughts that are trying to come in respectful? Are they worthy of respect? If they're not, you have to arrest them and bring them into captivity. What thoughts are just? Are they fair? Are they moral? Are they aligned with what's right? If they're not, if it's telling you to do something immoral, if it's telling you to do something bad, it's telling you to do something wrong, it's not a just thought. It's not a thought that you should entertain. What's pure? Is it undefiled? Is it holy? Is it free from malicious intent? We have a lot of thoughts that have malicious intent, especially if somebody has done something to us. Another example of, the whole, when your thoughts run wild, most people have probably almost had an argument with someone or started an argument with someone, and the argument doesn't happen, or it doesn't fully materialize. You hop in your car, you're mad, you start driving down the road. The next thing you do is allow this whole argument scenario to play out in your mind. And I don't know how far you let it go. I don't know if you get into a fight. I don't know if you hurt somebody. I don't know if you winning. How far does your mind go with that thought that, by the way, never really happened? Your fist balled up, your blood pressure is elevated, heart beating faster. All these physiological things are happening based on a thought process for something that never really happened, right? That's, again, how the thoughts can kind of run wild with you. So, what things are pure? What things are lovely? Is it gracious? Is it things that push you towards love? We all know God is love, and so it will be a loving thought and not a hateful thought. What things are admirable? So are they commendable? Are they positive? Do they have a good reputation? Does the thought have a good reputation? Is it going to help you establish a good reputation? Because, again, going back to the very beginning, it starts with a thought, and then a thought leads to an action. An action leads to a habit, and a habit leads to your character, right? So if you have a poor character, it can all go back all the way to your thought life. So a thought life can also help you establish a great character. And then lastly, is it excellent, right? And excellent kind of speaks for itself. So I want to be real and I want to be practical, because you're probably like, man, get out of here. Like, no way you're doing that, or how am I supposed to do that? Or maybe you think it sounds corny or whatever. And so again, my disclaimer is I'm not excellent at it. I'm not great at it. This is something that I have to work on, and something that I really try to understand myself when I'm thinking of, when I'm cautious of thinking of it, when I'm in my spirit and I can think of it. It's something to practice and to try. But just like anything else, it's tough. If you're trying to be a professional athlete and you're working on the fundamental things, it's not easy. You have to do a lot of fundamentals to become a professional, to become an expert. So again, I'm just helping with the information, helping myself, helping my brothers and my sisters and whoever else is out there. But at the end of the day, it's a pattern, and it's a workout plan. It's something that if you put in front of you and say, okay, every time I started to get ready to drift down a pathway of a certain thought, at some point, even if I didn't catch it right at the gate, can I hit the brakes on it and say, wait a minute, why am I thinking that? Why am I going down that thought process? That didn't happen. That's not happening. That's not who I am, or that's not who that person was, or whatever the case. So some of the depressive thoughts come from people imagining themselves dead, or imagining life, somebody living life without them. And it's sad, and you get this melancholy feeling and all that. But at the end of the day, you're fine. You're healthy. You're alive. You're not dead. Some people are picturing themselves out of work and whatever. You're not out of work right now. If you're still working, if whatever your reality is, whatever the truth is, the facts are, you're still living in the facts. Don't allow yourself to go too far down a mental trail, or a long string of thoughts that aren't true and are highly negative and leading you into a negative path, right? So the thing I want to leave you with is just a couple of additional scriptures that add into sort of what we're talking about. One you hear from me quite a bit, Romans 12:2 is the one that I love a lot, and that's about the focus on mental transformation that comes from renewing your mind. Right, so it talks about, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So again, it's pointing back to things starting out in your mind, starting out with thoughts. And so the transformation, it happens there, right? Romans 12:2. Proverbs 4:23 admonishes you to guard your heart. And so the heart is the central point where the thoughts and emotions and everything are, from a spiritual standpoint. And so I know you like to say, you remember when I said, hey, garbage in, garbage out, right? This fits into this as well. So what you're allowing in is what will eventually flow out, because it says in that word, things will flow out of your heart, right? So guard your heart, allow good things to flow into your heart, so the things that are coming out of you will naturally be good things, will naturally be positive things. So Proverbs 4:23. Colossians 3:2 encourages you to set your mind on things above rather than earthly things, right? So we follow a lot of social media. We see a lot of things happening. We listen to a lot of what the world says about stuff, what the world says about pastors, what the world says about women, what the world says about men, what the world says about toxic masculinity, what the world says about whatever. And we got to stop letting the world define things for us, and letting people's feelings define things for us. And we got to go to the facts. We got to make our feelings fit the facts, because we're just living in a world that's too caught up on feelings and opinions, and we're just letting everything run haywire, and it's developing a thought life and an acceptance that's hindering us. So again, if we're going to build good habits and eventually work into good character, it has to start in the mind. We have to be transforming our mind. We have to think about these 6 things and ask ourselves, are these thoughts, the type of thoughts that constantly come to us on a daily basis, fit these things, and that's what we're allowing? Or are we just allowing any kind of thought to come in and run wild with us? I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be the best. I'm never going to have a leadership position. Whatever it is that you've allowed to take up stronghold, and it's constantly gaining momentum, and it's constantly building in your mind, those are the things that we have to take into captivity, go in there and arrest all of it, go in there and tear down the strongholds that's built itself up, and then slowly but surely start replacing it with those 6 things that the word said to replace it with. And then the last one that was similar that fits in here is Isaiah 26:3. And it basically highlights that, keeping your mind steadfast on God, it leads to peace. And so the opposite of all this depression, the opposite of all this anxiety, the opposite of all these things is peace, right? And so I can tell you about a state and a time where I did not have peace. And I can also tell you a state and a time where I have peace. And I can tell you unequivocally, there's not a dollar amount that I would pay for peace. Like it's priceless to be able to have peace in your heart, to have peace in your mind. When you don't have peace, it doesn't matter how much money you have or whatever else you're doing. If you don't have peace, there's no way that you can be happy, or that you can be content, that you can be whole, that you can be full, because peace is priceless. So all these things we are talking about, your thought life, counteract your actual peace. And so if you want to have peace, if you want to focus on peace, if you want to build towards peace, then you have to make the feelings fit the facts, and you have to make sure that you are bringing your thoughts into captivity, and you're starting slowly but surely doing that. Because if you have a military type of mindset around checking thoughts that enter your brain, you'll realize that you'll be a lot happier, a lot less anxiety, and you'll find yourself in a greater state of peace. So, man, I hope that helps some people, because I'm working through this and I'm looking at it, and it helps me quite a bit. And just the last thing I want to say, where you can find those things, Philippians 4:8. Think on what's true, think on what's noble, think on what's just, think on what's pure, think on what's lovely, think on what's admirable, and think on what's excellent. Thanks.